There are 5 specific signals your body sends you before total burnout. Most runners ignore 4 of them until it's too late. And I'll tell you, I've been there. And this is just some of my thoughts when it comes to using the Maffetone method or heart rate training, aka slow running. Sleep is the only time that your body truly repairs your aerobic machinery. What I mean by that is your mitochondria and your capillaries. You're trying to build. Look, if you are sleep deprived, your nervous system remains in a state of high alert. This raises your resting heart rate, and it also lowers your heart rate variability, your HRV, meaning your heart rate will spike much earlier in a run than it would if you were literally just well rested. Now, number 2 is like chronic stress, right? And look, your heart can't distinguish between stress from a hard interval session, a looming work deadline, or even physical labor around the house. It literally goes into the same stress bucket. If your life stress is high, your base heart rate is already elevated even before you lace up your shoes and go for a run. And this often results in cardiac drift, where your heart rate climbs steadily throughout a slow run, even if your pace remains constant. Hydration and blood volume is heavily dictated by blood volume. When you are dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker and your total blood volume drops. So to deliver the same amount of oxygen to your muscles, your heart has to beat faster to move that thicker, low volume blood. This is like even why mild dehydration can make an easy aerobic pace feel significantly harder. Heat and cardiac drift, this is the external temperature, is a massive hidden tax on your heart. So when it's hot and humid, your body diverts blood away from your working muscles and towards the skin to facilitate cooling through sweat, because there is less blood available, okay? There's less blood available to power your stride, and your heart has to pump faster to keep up with the dual demand of movement and thermal regulation. Now, this one here, caffeine stimulants, okay, people who drink caffeine, this is a direct stimulant that increases the activity of the central nervous system. While it can improve perceived exertion, it can often cause a false elevation in heart rate. And if you take caffeine shortly before a heart rate monitored run, you might find yourself forced to run 30 to 45 seconds per mile slower, just to keep the numbers in your target zone. Even when your muscles feel fine. So if you want to improve, you need to deal with some of these things. And if you can't overhaul your entire lifestyle at once, you can follow an order of priority. So to see the biggest impact on your training, priority 1, I would say, is sleep. It is the foundation that you cannot out-train or out-diet a lack of sleep. If you are poorly rested, your heart rate will be volatile and your recovery will be stagnant. And getting an extra 30 to 60 minutes of shut-eye, trust me, it will do more for your MAF and your zone 2 slow running than any supplement or perfect meal, in my opinion. Priority 2 is hydration. This is the low-hanging fruit. It is much easier to drink more water and manage your electrolytes than it is to eliminate life stress. So proper hydration provides an immediate mechanical advantage by keeping the blood flow high, right? The blood volume high, which stabilizes your heart during the second half of your run. Priority 3 is stress management. I don't care how else to put this, but once your sleep and hydration are stable, look at your total daily load. If you have a physical demanding day or a high stress project, look, you're going to have to give yourself permission to run even slower, or maybe pivot and you may have to walk. Look, these are things that you're going to have to manage, right? It is managing the bucket. It ensures you don't burn out while you are trying to build a base. Now, look, there are things that you're going to have to deal with when it comes to stress. Now, I could say it's easy just to work through it and meditate and get more sleep and let things roll off your shoulder. But look, there are signs that show up when your stress bucket gets full. And, one of those things, when you've reached your level of you can't take any more stress in your life. And I call it the stress bucket because, if someone flips you the bird while they cut you off, or you are getting frustrated with the person in front of you because they're going so slow, or you come home after work and your wife or your husband or somebody says, "Hey, how was your day? Mine was great." And if you get snappy, your mood starts to change. These are some signs that stress bucket, it's starting to overflow, and you may just explode. And the mood swings and the depression and procrastination, and these are just some of those things that start to cause things to build up to a point where your heart rate is elevated. Like as soon as you wake up, right? It also affects your sleep, right? Like you may not be able to sleep a whole night through because you're worrying about something, or you may be anxious about something happening that hasn't even happened yet, or maybe never happens. Like all of these things start to it's like pulling a thread. Once you start pulling it, like where does it end? So there's all of these things to consider. And it's stressful just even thinking about that, because I've gone through all of those things I've just talked about. I've experienced firsthand, and it sucks. It's not fun. And, if you've got medical things going on in your life, or your spouse has medical things, that's added stress. Paying bills, or not having enough money, or I don't know, it could be a number of things, right? All of this affects your running. So if you're out there and you're running slow and you find that it's like really slow, you can start looking at some of these other signs that may be an indication that things just aren't right when it comes to your stress load. I'm gonna make another video on the whole stress side of running and the things to look for. So that way you can figure out, okay, that's a sign. That's something that I need to consider, or I need to pay attention to, because I'll tell you, if you don't, running becomes hard, specifically when you're training by heart rate, because there's nothing worse than going out for a run thinking, hey, this is going to be great, and then realizing like a kilometer or a mile in, and you're like, I just got to walk this whole thing because my heart rate is way too high. I get it. I've been there. I've gone through it, and it's never any fun. So if this is you and you're thinking about, running and using heart rate training, I think this video here will help you next. And like I always say, get out and run.
Heading back to what used to be home, passing by those little towns I know so well, stopping for gas and then I'm behind the wheel again. Driving is like a spiritual cleanse, where every mile is a new beginning and every bend holds a new end. Eyes on the road, don't lose control. I'm speeding fast to chase my soul.